Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to have you all here with me in the Meet Your Mentor podcast. If you're coming back for another episode, then welcome back. Now, for those of you who are first time listeners and don't know much about the Mentor Project, we are an organization that is dedicated to passing knowledge, culture, values, and so many other things to help mentor people in fields they might be interested in. And for the new listeners who don't know me either, my name is Elise, and I will be your host for today. So I just completed my sophomore year and I'm now officially a junior in high school. And I'm obviously here interning at the Mentor Project, which has given me so many incredible opportunities and I'm very grateful for it. As for this podcast, each week I will be interviewing one of our world renowned mentors and asking about their job, some advice they may have, what it means to be a mentor, and so much more. Quick shout out to our listeners and our sponsors for making this podcast possible. Now, I think you guys will really, really like what we have in store for you today. The mentor I get to introduce today is Patrick Kelley. Patrick is an information security veteran, and he has worked for over 20 years in this field. He's focused on defensive security, which led him to work with lots of different places, such as Lions Club International, Youth Leadership Pickens, and much more. He has also worked in defense, finance, and entertainment. His work has been covered by a lot of notable companies such as CNN, The Guardian, NBC News, and more, which I'll let him talk more about. Please welcome Patrick Kelley. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hey, it's great to be here, and it's always a wonderful opportunity to work with the Mentor Project.
It is. So, right off the bat, one thing that was kind of coming to mind for me was just what exactly does it mean to be an information security veteran, and what's that job entail?
Oh, wow. Um, there's a lot that goes into it, especially with the ransomware upticks and the things like that. But our job effectively is to, work with companies to make them more resilient to attacks. And if there is a ransomware event or something that comes and interrupts their operations, that we have a way for them to quickly recover and to move on, with their business. Um, to be a veteran, it's been a long ride. When I first started in information security, it really didn't exist yet. There were some firewalls and things, and we were starting to look at security. But this is 27, 28 years ago.
Yeah.
I started when I was roughly your age,
Wow.
and so as we've moved forward, we've definitely gone to places that I'd never expected.
hmm Yeah. So, I just want to clarify. So, you make it sound like in information security you have not only does it make it more resilient against attacks, but you kind of have a backup plan prepared if like an attack does get through. Is that what you mean?
Yes. So I mean, if you
Okay.
look at some of the recent events that we've been in the news, like Colonial Pipeline and hospitals down in Savannah, Georgia. These are companies that they support life. They provide fuel that goes to hospitals, or they are the
hmm
hospitals that are taking care of COVID patients, or those that have heart attacks, and all of those things. Um, and no matter how hard we try, sometimes an attack will be successful, and we have to find a way to kind of restore those operations so that we
hmm
we don't have loss of life, or people can go to work and eat and those things.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So, was this something that right off the bat when you graduated high school or something, this was what you wanted to do? Or perhaps maybe like did you study something else in college and you've kind of just slowly gotten here or what?
You know, um, that's a crazy thing, and I think this is a story for anybody that's listening to this. I came from a really small town in Georgia, and there weren't any paved roads or paths that led you to go become an information security professional. Like the majority of the people that I went to high school with, we were going to go work for the county,
Mhm.
and pave roads, or do landscaping, or we were going to go be mechanics. Um, this wasn't really an option because it hadn't really existed yet.
Yeah.
The amount of homes, where I came from that had, kids that went off to college was actually pretty low.
Okay.
And so I originally was going to go work in kitchens, and I was going to, play music, professionally, because I never really,
Wow.
yeah, different directions. But
Uh-huh.
I really didn't think that this was an option, and I didn't really believe, when I was your age, that I was ever really going to be smart enough,
Well,
or intelligent enough to do this. And what and I loved this field. I just didn't feel like I was ever going to be smart enough, or intelligent enough, or good enough to be successful in it. My first several years, I really questioned if I belonged here.
mhm,
And what I came to find out is this was something that I wanted to be a hacker. I wanted to be an ethical hacker. I wanted to solve, the big problems. And even though, I came from this poor, small town in Georgia, I just kept working. I
mhm,
kept learning wherever I could. And over time, I found my place here, and then I ended up really getting with some incredible mentors. So
mhm,
I had some great mentors before I ever came to like the Mentor Project. Um, and they took the time to kind of guide me, as we went, and I just stayed very honest, very positive, kept working as hard as I could. And and here we are, 25 years later. I've got a company, and I've got the most amazing employees in the world that I get to work with, and we're solving these really great problems that, back when this first began, I never really thought would ever be possible.
mhm,
Um, so those of you listening to this, if you don't think it's possible, and you're from a home that, nobody's gone to college, and you're kind of thinking that you could never go and do something just really spectacular, you can. You just have to work hard, and then you'll do just fine.
mhm. Yeah, that's a very, very good message to send. Not just, I feel like it applies in lots of different areas.
Yeah.
Um, so one question that kind of also popped into my head was like, obviously at one point you didn't believe you were like capable enough for this job. Um, and obviously over time you've made it and you've like proved yourself wrong. So I mean, obviously, there are a lot of skills that you can work to develop to be in this field, but what are some of those skills that you need to like bring to the table to do this?
Yeah, I think I think that's where, like, there's a big misunderstanding about information security.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you asked that question, because a lot of people, they don't want to get into it because they don't believe they're going to be really good programmers, um, or they're not really good with mathematics, so they won't join this field.
Hmm.
Um, you don't have to be either of those things. You don't have to be a good programmer to be great in information security. And as far as mathematics, a lot of the things we do, it's either a zero or a one. It's on or off.
Hmm.
Um, but here's what you do have to have. You have to have ambition. You have to have an aptitude and a desire to do this. And most importantly, you really have to have a strong set of ethics that you live by. Because as you move through this field, you're going to learn how to do some very interesting things, and you can use them a variety of different ways. Kind of like, you can be a mechanic, but what you learn as a mechanic, you could also use to steal a car.
Hmm.
Um, so the ethics are super important, and this industry is different than most, because if you're going to go and go be a welder, the things you need to know to be a welder, though you'll always improve on them, they're relatively consistent, as to what you need to do. So you can go to school, to a trade school, and then you can go on and work that job, and you're pretty much good to go, for years on end.
Hmm.
Um, information security is something that you're learning something new every single day of your life. And I've had a lot of people tell me that over the years until I learned it myself. But it's really not an exaggeration. Like every day I come to work, there's something that I'm going to learn that I didn't know yesterday. And I've been here 25 years.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're someone that loves to learn, you're a perpetual student, you love to solve puzzles, um, this is for you. But you have to have that work ethic. You've got to have that ambition. Um, and yeah, those are the most important things. Learning how to program in Python is great. Going and taking the certifications, for Network Plus and Security Plus and CISP and all those things
Hmm.
are wonderful and all. But really, it's going to come down to ambition, aptitude, and work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I feel like, as someone who's like listening to this is not only, I mean, as the host versus like a podcast listener, although we're kind of in the same mind space at the moment, it's just like, I feel like you're right in the fact that that does seem like a very large misconception because I wouldn't have thought that it would kind of be boiled down to those kind of basic ethical line.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, some of the greatest people that I've ever worked with in this field have never written a line of programming ever.
Wow.
They're very good at quantifying risk. Looking at a situation, what a particular impact could be on a company. Say if there's a breach, could the company recover from it? They're very good at understanding risk. They're very good communicators, and you can be the most technical person in the world, but if you can't communicate that clearly, to the rest of the business, if you can't tell the leaders that you need to do, a particular thing, and you can't break it down in a way that they understand it and relate it, you're not going to be very successful. And you can be incredibly brilliant programmer, but if you can't talk to people and you can't communicate clearly, um, the wish is going to get caught between the penny and the well. Like
Yeah.
it's never really going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Another question that I have, which kind of goes back to something you said a little bit earlier, was I know you mentioned that obviously this was something you'd been interested in for a while, but you never felt like you could get there.
Mhm.
So I was wondering if you could talk about like kind of what moment in your life did you realize that this was, well, first of all, what moment in your life did this get introduced to you? And then when did you realize that you were able to do it?
Oh man. Um, so those happened at different times. So it was
Uh-huh.
introduced to me. I'll never forget. My father worked for an insurance company, and he got a computer. Now this is a long time ago, and they gave him this computer. It's this giant beige box and this big TV looking monitor.
Yeah.
And this is probably 1988, give or take, somewhere around in there.
Okay.
And he brought it home, and I was very interested in it because you could play games on it, and you could like, what does it do? And so when he would go to church or he would go out for the evening, I would take it apart and I would look at it and I would take the
Hmm.
cards out of it, and so the important thing to understand is that if you're going to do that, it has to work before they get home.
Yeah.
So, so where some of my friends, when the parents went to sleep, they would steal the car and they would make sure they brought it back for the parents wake up. I was taking apart the computer and making it work before they got home. Um, if I'm being entirely honest, there's days still that I'll work on it and you kind of wonder, okay, am I good enough to be here?
Mhm.
Because it's a hard field.
Mhm.
But I think I was probably 20 or 21, and I realized that, okay, I got my first um, sort of help desk job, and I was able to kind of work at a computer every day instead of going and working at a restaurant in the kitchen. And I remember the very first morning, I put my dress shirt on, which felt really weird because I'd been in the kitchen for years. We didn't dress up. And I went to work and I sat down. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. I sat down at that office chair and I looked around and there's like this whole office around me and it's mine. And there's this L-shaped desk and there's a computer and there's stuff to do. And I was kind of sitting there going, okay, wait, like if I can get this right for like the next 30 or 90 days, like I might actually get to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously it did. And I kind of looked at it and said, okay, I think this is going to work out. And from there, I just became more and more inquisitive about kind
Yeah.
of how to do it. The education side was challenging. Um, and I think it's important for individuals that are looking to do this to understand this too. Um, I wasn't able to just go to college. Like my family didn't have the money. I couldn't get a student loan. My grades weren't quite high enough in high school. The whole imposter syndrome thing that was going on,
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't really think I deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I found out is that there is knowledge everywhere, um, especially today. You can go get books and there's YouTube and there's videos. But about 12, 13 years ago, I found where University of California, Berkeley, they were taking all of their lectures, and then the very next week they were videotaping them, and then the very next week they put them all on the internet. And I don't know if they really knew that they were putting them all on the internet, but they did.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to learn cybersecurity and psychology and sociology, I was able to just go and watch these videos.
Wow.
And I started emailing the professors, which initially they wondered, who is this guy? He's not in our
Mm-hmm.
class. But they ended up interacting with me and teaching me more. So the point to it is that you don't have to go to college for this to work.
Yeah.
You can get that knowledge in other ways if you just try hard enough.
Yeah. It just seems like an amazing opportunity to have all of that, right at your fingertips. And obviously, that's become a lot more widespread now with things like Khan Academy.
Yeah,
But
Cybrary, edX,
yeah, a lot of different things.
Coursera, like yeah, the knowledge is like right in front of you. You can go and be anything these days. It's
Hmm.
God, so cool.
It is very much.
It's like
Um,
we created the internet. Out of it, we got cat pictures and distance learning. It can, some
very,
days like it's a toss up.
yeah, exactly. I just want to acknowledge how cool it is that you just would like repeatedly take apart the computer and be able to, put it back
Yeah.
together and make it work. Because when I was younger, um, I took apart my mom's old iPhone and I took apart my dad's like watch and all this stuff, and they knew and they approved, thankfully. But I would not have been able to, put that back together if I tried. So
I
I
mean, good
just
on you for getting permission first, though.
thank
It's
you.
totally different than the way I went.
Yeah. This is also, I mean, it's similar to what we're talking about, but it doesn't really have to do with Mentor Project or you. But at my high school, the high school I'm at, a couple of years ago, there was um, someone who graduated, and he was like, had, he was definitely interested in hacking and things like that. And he graduated with like a 6-figure salary, which is just absolutely insane to me because it's just incredible that, he was able to be that successful so young. But
Mhm.
yeah. So,
Yeah, you can. The salaries are high, but if you get into if you get into cybersecurity, information security for the money, it's a really terrible idea.
yeah.
I mean, the money is great, but there's going to get a point where if you're not in it because you love it, you're going to get really tired, and it's
Yeah.
very easy to get burned out in this field. So, um, I hear stories about the entry salaries and being $100,000 and $150,000, and it's really great. But if someone is getting into it for the money, I would tell them to save every dollar that you possibly can because you're gonna burn out.
Hmm.
And then at least when you get to the end of it, you'll have all that money, that you
Yeah.
can use as you figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think obviously, you would know best. And you're saying there's more burnout in this kind of field than other ones. But I feel like if you go into anything, just for the money, eventually you're just going to get really bored and you're not going to be enjoying, your
That,
life and like what you're doing.
I mean, that's me. I mean, I've never been a really good employee. I mean, just kind of like, just throwing it out there. And, I'm a big fan of owning what I'm not, because then you really figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Um, and I've never been good at going to work and sitting in a cubicle and
Hmm.
this is your job and you just kind of go through these tasks and when you get through the task you just kind of sit there and burn time until 5 and then you go home. To me, like I totally get people that do that because it's consistent and you're not really dealing with a lot of stress and um, but I'm kind of different.
Hmm.
To me, I look at days as these opportunities that if I work really hard and I exert all the effort and I burn the brain energy that I can do something truly special and when I'm done and when I leave this career, I leave this world, like I feel like I didn't waste any of the time. And
Hmm.
so when I've tried to be an employee in the past, I always kind of push against the boundaries because I don't want to just do something and do it every day. I want to push it further. I want to
Hmm.
find a way to save more lives. I want to find a way to solve that unsolvable puzzle.
Yeah.
We're not all built that way. But yes, any future employers of mine, you should know in case this whole company thing doesn't work out that I take I require a lot of tasks and projects to keep me truly engaged.
Hmm. I just really liked what you said earlier, where you kind of have to acknowledge what you aren't, and like in order to like live in your truest self. I just really think, like you said, those are really good words to live by. So, thank you for that,
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, if I were to go back and talk to a much earlier self, version of myself, I would, I'd probably just say, hey, listen, it's okay to not be everything, and it's okay to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time, or at least I did when I was younger, not wanting to admit things I didn't know, or not wanting to acknowledge things that I wasn't. Um, but here's the cool thing, like you're going to figure out you don't know something anyway.
Hmm.
And the quicker you get to the I don't know, the quicker you're going to get to being receptive of learning something new. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that a lot of us don't know. And that is a totally cool answer. Because the sooner you get to I don't know this, or I'm not really good at that, and if you just kind of own it, you're going to save yourself a lot of time of kind of faking it.
Hmm.
And people like me, like I really like working with young adults and college folks that will just skip that part and say, yeah, I don't know anything about red teaming. I don't know anything about penetration testing. Because to me, if someone will be vulnerable enough to tell me what they don't know, man, I am so excited to teach them everything that I do know.
Yeah.
And it just so anybody that's listening to this, like don't be afraid to say like I don't know that or I'm not good at that yet. Because there are a lot of us out here that like we really want to make you good at that. And the quicker
Hmm.
we get to work, the faster you're gonna live all your dreams. And that's as a mentor, that's what I want to see. I want to see each person I work with. Um, I want to see them go on and live a life that exceeds any of their wildest imagination. If they're thinking about living abroad for 6 months, I want to see them have the opportunity to live abroad for years. And if
Hmm.
they want to go, send rockets into space, I can't wait to sit home and turn on the television and watch their rocket go to
Yeah.
space. Like
Hmm.
I'm so enamored and excited by working with people and
Hmm.
seeing them go be just these amazing versions of themselves that they didn't think that they could be.
Yeah. That's
Anyway,
a really, really great answer. um, so I just have a couple questions left.
sure.
My first one is, it seems like, well, I do want to get to the mentor stuff, but before that, I have one question. Um, So, correct me if I'm wrong, but your company seems like it deals like more with other businesses rather than like personal, um, issues and stuff. But in the interest of like information security, what's the biggest people that just like, or excuse me, what's the biggest thing that people can do to protect their information?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to kind of clear it up a little bit, Critical Path does work with a lot of businesses, but we also
Okay.
spend a lot of time working with your ultra high net worth folks.
Okay.
These could be sports stars, musicians. So we spend a lot of time with with highly visible people that
Hmm.
need help.
Okay.
Um, the two things you can do more than anything else to protect yourself is get a password manager and get two-factor authentication, like get Duo on your phone. Because here's how most of the attacks are working. Say you have, let's be super conservative. Say you have 5 websites on the internet that you go and log into. Maybe it's a bank, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, LinkedIn. Let's use those.
Hmm.
Um, if you use the same username and password for all of them and one of them gets breached, then they've all
Yeah.
been breached. So having a password manager is going to allow you to create very random, unique passwords for each one of those sites. And you're not going to have to remember them all up here in your head.
Hmm.
There's a master passphrase that you use to get into the password manager. And then from there, it remembers all these crazy random passwords.
Yeah.
So, if Facebook gets breached, then your Twitter isn't going to get breached. Or if your bank account gets breached, then the other side isn't.
Hmm.
The other is just get an application for your phone like Duo or similar where you can do that two-factor authentication. There's Google Authenticator, there's Microsoft Authenticator, there's Duo again.
Okay.
But what that's going to do is you have to put in a username and a password, and then it's going to send some sort of push or a notification to your phone that you have to hit too. So what this means right at the end of the day is even if I know your username and password and it's been leaked, if I don't have your phone or I don't have that app to
Yeah.
verify that I'm you, I can't get in. So
Hmm.
those are going to be those two things that are going to be the very best things you could do for
Okay.
yourself individually right now.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds very smart. So thank you for that information.
Yeah.
So my last main question is just you did already talk a little bit about what it means to you to be a mentor, but I just wanted to know, were you like, did you find yourself mentoring before you joined the mentor project, or was this kind of your gateway where now you're really mentoring like a lot more people?
I've been mentoring for a long time.
Okay.
I started locally, like I wasn't part of this big mentor project when I first started.
Hmm.
I actually used to go to the elementary school and I would work with kids that were in troubled homes and I would go and kind of just work with them to kind of show them that there's some different things and ways that they could go, and I
Hmm.
would help them get through those tough situations.
Yeah.
So I've been mentoring for quite some time. To me personally, I'd, I'm more interested in being a part of something that's going to be bigger than anything I'm going to do myself. So, for instance, it if I were to just go make myself a better person, when I pass, like that's it. Like it's only going to be as big as I am.
Hmm.
Um, but the amazing thing about mentorship that people should understand if they're trying to figure out if they want to be a mentor is that you're part of something each time you go and you mentor. You're part of something bigger than yourself. When you're gone, it's going to live on. Like that person you mentor is likely going to go and mentor themselves. Um, and as you get older and I interact with, students I worked with 10, 15 years ago, and I watch that they've gone on and started, nonprofits or now they're, leading a company and they're putting a bunch of money into their community and they're helping kids, come up out of troubled situations. Like I'm really, really proud of that. I'm
Yeah.
actually more proud of being a part of just something that they've gone and done and made amazing. So, you know, mentoring, and especially the mentor project on a global scale, it gives you the opportunity of doing something truly fulfilling and something that you're never going to know the full impact of it. And when you're dead and you're gone and your time's over, like this good thing that you're a part of is going to live on. And I
Hmm.
think that's one of the coolest things that you can, I mean, it to me, I think it really is one of the coolest things you can ever do.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get that opportunity in any other way other than mentorship.
Hmm. I completely agree with that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, with that in mind, if anyone's listening who either wants to just reach out to you to learn more about you or, be mentored by you, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Oh, wow. Through the mentor project, obviously, it's a really great way.
Hmm.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Um, pretty much if you go through one of those ways, I'm gonna get to you. I'm an overcommitter, so if you reach out, I'm probably going to agree to do it. Which means sometimes it may take me a minute to get back to you, but all you have to do is reach out.
Okay. And then as well, I'm assuming you have a website for Critical Path as
I
well?
do.
Okay.
It's just criticalpathsecurity.com.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool.
Well, those were about all the questions that I had for you, Patrick.
Hey, great.
So, yeah, this has been like very interesting, and thank you so much for being on the Meet Your Mentor podcast.
Of course, I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you to everyone who's listening. I hope you all found that very like compelling and learned as much as I did. If you want to learn more about Patrick, feel free to visit the places that he mentioned, which I will also have in the description below. And if you want to learn more about the Mentor Project, you can go to mentorproject.org. And once again, this will be in the description below. So you can use that to learn more about us. I hope to see everyone here back here next week. Thank you guys so much. And as well, thank you to our sponsors for making this podcast possible. All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. Bye.
Bye. Have a great evening.